morning, good afternoon, good evening, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda. This is my podcast, Jar of Marbles. So glad that you're able to pop in today. Today I am going to be talking about bad gifts unhinged. Now let me just elaborate. I was a single parent for many years and Christmas became a super fun time. My daughters have great senses of humour and a decent sense of the ridiculous. It's taken a few false starts with my outrageous sense of fun, but eventually it turned out to be hilarious and it actually bonded my family. Being a single parent with no financial support from the sperm donors meant that Christmas had to be strategically planned. Presents lay-byed in September so that my 3 children would have a great Christmas. So the great presents covered, tick, but also accompanied by the bad gifts. I hope that you enjoy it, and again, thanks for coming by. The tradition of giving gifts can be traced as far back as cavemen and cavewomen. It was an important part of their communities, usually to establish dominance. Leaders of tribes would often gift a person who had accomplished something great for the tribe. Things like kissing under a mistletoe, singing carols, wreaths and giving gifts were all aspects of pagan holidays that were adapted into Christmas celebrations in the early years. Giving gifts reconfirm or establish our connection with others, which is a reflection of both the giver and the receiver, as well as their unique relationship. It is a thoughtful way to convey to someone that you think of them. You could be trying to get a unique response. When we lived on a rural property, it had a huge macadamia tree orchard on it with 2 huge spring-fed dams. There were dirt roads that ultimately led to bitumen roads that ultimately would take you into a local town. One day I was driving to town, and on the side of the road was this huge letterbox. It was just lying there. I pulled over, and it was quite dilapidated. The brass numbers were hanging, dangling from the front of it. Great dry chunks of paint were standing up hard from the surface. It had seen lots of hot Australian summers. I picked it up, threw it in the boot, took it home and wrapped it up. It was going to be for my youngest daughter, her 5th birthday. Now, while she received presents she lost her mind over that she really loved, when she opened up the letterbox, she actually looked quite mad, like as in a little bit angry. And I asked, "Do you love it?" And she said, "No, Mummy," and quickly folded her arms, as she used to do in those days if she didn't approve of something. She said no, and quickly folded her arms. No joke, I asked her every year after that, reminding her of the letterbox. And wasn't it funny? She'd say, "No, Mummy." Finally, at 12, she saw the humour, which just made it even more funnier because she could see the humour in it, but it had been lost on her for 7 years. Presents ranged from a dry worm in a ring box, had been lavishly wrapped, a dusty suitcase with a dusty plastic picnic set inside. Actually, it was just really dirty. The dust had actually turned into dust. That's terrible! I know, that's why I did it. I can still smell it now when I think of it. An awful clock that had these paper floral backgrounds with a damaged butterfly on the hands. Like, I think it was originally a real butterfly. It was quite odd, but a great bad gift, right? I bought my mum a pair of awful man shoes and painted them white, boxed them up, gave them to her in case she wanted to take up bowling. She didn't. She didn't like bowling. Well, no, she didn't. Quite right, Bob. A bowling ball in a paper bag, and when the person picked it up, it fell out and rolled away. I found some hosing and piping in a car park once. I grabbed all that and boxed that up. Terribly awful, overused pyjamas. Once upon a time in the op shops, they used to have pyjamas and underwear that really you really should have just, blew them up, thrown them out. But there was a time when you could get really terrible things, which were great presents. Weird ornaments, a flute, which turned out to be an antique clarinet. Who knew? A piece of rotting cheese. I didn't actually do that on purpose. I just thought as a last-minute thing I would wrap up some cheese. And I'd started early in the year, so by the time it was opened, it had turned black and it was a little bit smelly. Great success. Giant underpants. But those backfired because everyone thought they were hilarious. Huge bras that could engulf an adult head. A bridesmaid dress for one of my daughters. It was this maroon, sort of satiny number with all this lace, and she just put it on straight away and walked down the street in it. A rusty shower head. In the end, the kids far enjoyed the bad gifts than the actual genuine presents. It's the joy, the laughter. Seeing my daughters becoming animated and me watching, feeling so happy and pleased that not only did they love the bad gifts, but they appreciated the weirdness of it and, the wrapping of them. Putting on the gigantic pants that were over their chest, nearly tucked up into the armpits. Absolutely hilarious. And they were just, agog at where would you just find such gigantic underpants. But, there's all sorts of sizes and there's all sorts of, articles of clothing for everybody, which really opened up a brand new world for me. The bad gifts sometimes backfired, as in when it was appreciated and really enjoyed, and then they'd take them home. Oh, they didn't. Yes, they did. Or they would throw them in my rubbish bin as they're walking out the door. Really. I'm thinking creating bad gifts when someone had threatened the safety of my children. It was, when I say that, once they were entering into the dating age, and if anyone happened to be sort of around the family at that time, and I would just give them a terrible gift to which they would react sort of very confused, but it did send a message. It was like, maybe her mother, as in me, is a little bit crazy. Well, just don't push it, fella. Anyway, being a single parent meant that I had the task of making Christmas as special as possible and make it look like they had heaps of presents under the tree. When you are it, there may be single parents listening to this, nodding, going, Well, it falls completely on your shoulders, right? To create fun and wonder. And this was a way to bring real happiness and unforgettable memories to boot. I had an ex-husband who all but forgot his children, and as they grew older, the expenses increased, of course. Imagine 2 teenage daughters, their needs for personal hygiene, hair, bras. There's a reason why they only had one each, me included. He just refused to assist with any monetary or emotional help at all. Teenage girls require face washes, moisturiser, and interest in cosmetics emerge. I was going to say emoji, but anyway. Monthly requirements, painkillers, fashion, music, parties, which means fashion again. But we got there. But not because their father helped in any way. It was even more revolting because he had remarried, had 2 sons, and they literally were spoiled rotten. So to say my daughters missed out by him is twofold. Yes, he denied their existence, and yes, it was fantastic to not have his limp narcissist head in my family situation. But there is one thing I do remember that still makes me smile. Laugh would be a bit of an exaggeration. So it was a gift of sorts ultimately, but not in the way that you would think. My ex would hold on to his underpants until they literally decomposed on his body. They were so fine, they looked like cobwebs. There could have been spiders in there, who knows. And I wanted them replaced, and he would point back, blank refuse. I would buy new underpants. He would tuck them under the bottom of the drawer and then pull out these terrible pants that were they were just awful. One time, while still married, he crossed the line with me, so I took to his undies with a pair of scissors, cutting many holes in them, particularly in the bag resting department, all over the buttocks area, like everywhere, folded them neatly, put them back in the drawer. Now, back in the day, he would get ready quickly in the dark before the sun came up to go to work, not knowing what he had just slid onto his butt. So when he got to work and eventually had to go to the toot, he discovered he had holey underpants. He, with no sense of humour, came home furious and was yelling at me like a big bozo and quickly went to check his underwear drawer, all destroyed. I love my work, so just suffer in your jocks. No regrets. And this is one of my lines during the marriage was, you'll find this funny one day. But it sometimes literally took him years to find something funny. Hard work, I tell you. Anyway, so he got new underwear. Poor lamb. Poor lamb. That's right, Bob. Fancy having someone buying you new underwear. Unbelievable. Anyway, Valentine's Day wasn't far away, and this is the part that still makes me smile. The one cool thing he did that was entirely out of character. In the Daily Telegraph, which is one of the main newspapers here in Sydney, my ex-husband put in a classified ad that went something like this: Happy Valentine's Day. Even though you cut millions of holes in my undies, I will love you for always. I couldn't believe it. But, the one cool thing was just not gotten it together, and, a man with terrible underpants, I don't know. Fortunately, not long after that, we divorced. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it. Too little, too late. Because this is what, and a lot of personalities are like this, where, they sort of come out of a long sleep, they start sort of looking like the person that you met originally, and then they just disappear. Every 5 years would be, interesting, and then completely disappear and would never ever talk about it. So what can you do? Anyway, moving on. I was bored. I had a mind and a sense of fun, and being confined to the horrors of zero laughter, joy, not wanting to enjoy our children got too much, and that was that. So it was a gift. Bad in places, but all in all, I did what I could to make life fun. It does take two, right? So no regrets. I have no regrets. I'm glad I did what I did. I look back and think, you'll never forget me, will you wally? The real point is he lost me and I found myself. I'm so glad I didn't lay down and take it. Don't mess with me, bucko. I mean, gifts come in all kinds of shapes and forms. Once back in the late 1960s, I had entered a competition. I had sculpted a seal balancing a ball on its nose out of a bar of soap. And I entered it and it went through our local radio station, and I won and was gifted with 144 bottles of fizzy drink. I know! Didn't save me any. No, that's right, Bob, because you're not real. So I had an interview on the radio, and they asked me about my tiny sculpture, and my memory is this, that there were just loads of people crammed into the outdoor area of the radio station, and everyone was waiting for the announcement, and you could hardly move at all. So it was like a few days later, this truck pulled up outside our home, and 12 dozen bottles in they arrived in 12 crates, and they were delivered. And I recall, even as a child, noticing streams of kids coming out of all the houses from across and up the way, while all these drinks were being carried in and stacked in the laundry. Suddenly, I had all these friends. Fizzy drinks will do that. And that was how I discovered yellow creaming soda. Oh my God, just absolutely the best. So there was a time where I was thinking about creating a business called Bad Gifts. I sort of kind of did start it, but it just didn't really take off. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't really throw myself into it, but I had all these crazy ideas. In fact, I've still got a book full of really wild ideas. And if there's an entrepreneur out there thinking, I like the idea, go for it, or contact me. But the whole premise was first to bemuse and then to amuse. Like, for example, if you were feeling a little bit put out and it's approaching Valentine's Day, instead of sending some dozen red roses, send just a dozen stalks with the roses chopped off. That would be a bad gift and somewhat, in bad taste, but oh well, never mind. Can I say, in regard to gifts, because my life took such a sharp turn, becoming a single parent, it really made me feel really grateful for my daughters. I remember that distinctly, and it was a distinct knowing that I had, and I was conscious that I was responsible for their well-being and happiness. I had to be conscious of that. Well, I didn't have to, but I did, because I was the only one in their lives that was caring about them on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis. I enjoyed my kids, and I hope that they know that. It was and felt like such a gift. They all say that they had a great childhood, so boom, right there. I mean, as a parent, as you can imagine, you parents out there, having your kids saying, oh, I had a great childhood, and they have even said that they wish they could just go back. They loved being a kid, which is just music to my ears. Unfortunately, I have spoken to other parents over the years, just conversations where they have so much sorrow and guilt because their kids are still telling them to this day what terrible parents they were, and there's all this, manipulation going on, and and we're talking kids that are like in their late 30s and 40s who are still hanging over their parents' head that they had such a very terrible childhood. And when I look back on these people, their childhood was actually not that bad at all. They just learned at a very early age how to manipulate their mother or manipulate a situation, and unfortunately they were allowed to get away with it. The parent or parents bought into the manipulations. But anyway, the satisfaction I felt, and from knowing that I did the best that I could, and you know what, it was more than the best that I could. I actually know that I did a really good job. I was conscious of the fact of their homework, of hygiene, how they felt about themselves, entertainment, having a sense of humour, learning how to think, being team players in the home, being able to come to me, trust me trusting them. Like, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I was just really fortunate that I had these really smart kids who, wanted to be, they were good at thinking. They felt free to be able to express, how they felt, or if they were curious about the world. There was no fear in getting it wrong. That's what I'm trying to say. And any parent will tell you, in truth, it can be the hardest gig, and it's a fairly thankless life in many ways. But again, I really didn't experience that a lot, and I never really realised it till much later on, where I realised that I never ever bragged about it. I just thought that what we were doing was normal. It wasn't until years later that I realised how very, very different we were as a unit, as a family. And I'm now patting myself on my back, and I am patting them on their back, because it might be a long time before I get acknowledged by the fathers that just went off and lived their own lives. Yeah, who ever thought of such a concept? But anyway, but the pluses far outweigh those tough times. In truth, my parenting only got challenging, and I mean challenging, when the father was stirring the pot, threatening me, refusing to provide for their daughters. These guys are so common and create disaster because they have rights. You have the right to do us all a favour and just jump off a cliff, fella. That's right. Thank you, Bob. That is bloody right. That's people, little children's hearts and minds that you're playing with, and they turn around and go, they've got rights. Oh, do you? That's nice. Anyway, I was so naive and was genuinely shocked how cruel that he was to his children, and still is, to one daughter in particular. There's always a price, and the piper must be paid. Some people will judge me for what I'm saying. Don't care. And some people will love me for what I'm saying. All aboard! It's not my responsibility to tiptoe over and around this subject. I did when the kids were young, but now I look at them with a degree in psychology, specialising in narcissistic personality disorder. So I stopped making efforts, because boy, oh boy, did I overlook 1,000 ills in order to create a buffer for my daughters. A gift, if you will, so that they would know until they were developed enough to see it for themselves. I'm now relaxed and have let that ship sink. My value did not decrease based on someone else's inability to see my worth. And this person also took the praise for all the hardships that they went through raising their children. It's like, what? You weren't even a burp. Anyway, and as I have said before, nobody's got it figured out. But I'm fueled by my own proven ability to rise to huge challenges, and in this case, raised 3 wonderful daughters. The rest I just call bullshit. No apologies, no recognition. Thank you for raising my children for free. Never came, never will, and not ever expected. And I don't mean just the dollar point when I'm saying for free. No emotional input, no keeping of promises, no being delighted by these amazing beings. So do not expect me to be friendly about this. These sort of people are psychopaths. They're very dangerous. Sad thing is, they're as common as shoes. They're just everywhere. So my focus goes on the shine of the moon, that which is real and harmonising. I'm only interested in self-growth and making progress. Now that I've given you that little snippet, you can see and perhaps understand why I am so passionate about staying on track with not just positive thinking, but being very sensible and very filled with self-respect for yourself. Like, I'm into doing the work in order to outstep old dated thinking. And good things do take time. And that is a massive gift that I give to myself every day. And I'm sharing this with you in the hope that it will help you and for you to realize, that it's very okay to be proud about the progress that you are making in your own life. Now that I've risen to this, part of the podcast all steamed up, not really. I mean, it's all old news. I mean, really it is. But I wanted to share that with you because when people say, oh, I raised my kids on my own, a lot of them have grandparents, aunties, cousins around them. I'm just saying that when I say I raised my kids on my own, I really did. My family, well, I use that word very loosely. My children are my family. Anybody outside of that, they're just people that either donated a bit of sperm or they took what they could and ran, told lies, told stories, denied our existence, even permeated their way into friendships of people that I'd known for a long time. Imagine, and were able to poison quite a few people's minds. Not everybody, but that told me who they were. That told me that they were never friends, that they had actually probably never really liked me. And, all that sort of stuff points to people who are just absolutely miserable and are only around you to get what they can. And now I just don't have any time for waiting to be proven wrong or waiting to be proven right. If you're a good person, and when I say good, just being true to yourself, you're not out there hurting anybody, then you're my cup of tea. I love kindness. I admire intelligence, emotional intelligence, and one of my main motivations for doing this podcast is to be able to share various things, because I know so many people, not just single mums, single dads as well, who have had to go through the most unbelievable situations because some dicks decided that they don't want to do it anymore. Well, that's really good, because that meant that I was able to raise my children in the manner that they deserved. Anyway, on that note, I think it might be time that I said goodbye to you, and want to thank you so much for popping by. It's always great that you do, and I hope that you are looking after yourself. I hope that you are having a wonderful day, and that tomorrow is just going to bring something fantastic, like a surprise. I'm always looking out for surprises. Always go, oh, I'll be quite happy to have a surprise today. And it's quite interesting, the wonderful things that do come about with that mindset. But anyway, I might be going to wander off on another subject again while I'm busy trying to say goodbye, and you'll be saying, my God, Linda, that's not like it, love, is it? It's just like it. Thank you, Bob. Anyway, thank you so much for coming by, and I hope to